Hello guys, welcome back to Ride Academia. Today we are going to be looking at the compound interest, all right? We're going to be looking at and we'll be solving questions pertaining to the compound interest. Now, the compound interest is an interest system where interest is earned on the principal plus the previous interest, okay, plus previously earned interest. It's similar to the simple interest in the sense that um, interest is earned on principal, all right? Interest is earned on principal. But for the simple interest, the interest is just fixed, okay? We just have a fixed interest earned on principal. But for the compound interest, interest is accumulated. That is, we add interest to principal, and then we calculate interest based on the principal plus the previously earned interest. What I mean is this. Now, if we're to be having, let's say, 1,000 naira, okay? 1,000 naira was saved in the bank, all right? Was saved in the bank at a rate of 5% per annum. For the for the simple interest, it means we'll just be charging 5%, all right? We'll be adding 5%, okay? That means for every year we'll be having now 5% of this is 15 naira, right? It means for every year we'll be adding 15 naira. It's a constant amount, right? For every year we'll be adding 15 naira to our principal. So for the second year, right, we'll be having 1,050 naira. For the third year, we'll be having 1,100 as the case go on. That's for simple interest. Now, for the case of compound interest, we are no longer charging interest as a fixed amount, all right? We're no longer charging interest as a fixed amount. But in the case of the second year for a compound interest, okay, we can be having the same amount, all right? Should be the second year. We are going to be having that same amount of adding 15 naira, that's 5%, right, to our principal. But for the third year, we no longer add 50% anymore, but we'll be calculating 5% of this, okay? We'll be calculating 5% of this amount. So that's why we say interest is earned on the previously earned interest. That is the 50 naira plus the principal, okay? So we're going to be checking 5% of this and then adding it to this amount, all right? So in this case now, our money grows faster than when we use simple interest. Now, for a compound interest, okay, we'll be looking at three basic situations for which we can solve compound interest, okay? Three basic situations. Now, the first situation is where we are charging interest annually. We are calculating interest annually, okay? We are trying to say that interest is earned once in a year, okay? Interest is earned yearly. So for that, our formula, let's just quickly bring in our formula where interest is earned once in a year, okay? For where interest is earned once in a year, our compound interest, this future value, is your principal plus interest, okay? Then you call it your future value. So our future value is equal to our principal, that's the original money invested, multiplied by 1 plus our r raised to power n. That is for where interest is earned once in a year. Our r here is talking about our rate, okay? Our rate will convert from percentage to decimal, right? And then the year is the number of year. Our n is standing for the year, okay? This is where, like I said, where interest is earned once in a year. So let's assume that we are investing, let's say 200,000, okay? We want to invest 200,000, and then we are hoping for a compound interest, okay, of 10% per annum. We're hoping for a compound interest of 10% per annum. And then, like I said, in this case, interest is to be paid once in a year. So let's see how much we're going to be having at the end of 5 years. All right. So this is just our illustration. This is our principal. This is our percentage rate, okay? And then we want to see how much we're going to be having. That's our future value, okay? At the end of 5 years, that is after we have charged interest on the accumulated principal and what interest that was earned before, okay? Now let's quickly enter. We are looking for our future value. So our principal, like I said, is 200,000, and then our one is our constant, and then our rate 10% will convert to decimal, okay? It will be giving us 0.1, all right? That's 10 over 100, okay? To be giving us 0.1. So we have 0.1 raised to the power of the number of years, okay? Which is 5 years, all right? We'll be having 200,000 naira. Okay, let me include my naira sign. So we'll be having 200,000 naira multiplied by, now for our bracket, okay? We're going to be working on our bracket first. So our bracket, we're having 1 plus 0.1, okay? That will be giving us 1.1. And then the number of years still remain 5, okay? Still remains 5. We are calculating for 5 years, right? Now the next thing we'll do is to check for the raised to power, okay? We are going to be solving 1.1 raised to power 5, okay? We're bringing our multiplication, or we can still use our bracket, okay, for multiplication, all right? So 1.1 raised to power 5, we have 1.61, okay, to 2 decimal place. That means our future value will be, when we multiply 1.61 by 200,000, we're going to be having a future value of 322,000 naira. Like I said, this is the first scenario where we are earning compound interest just once in a year, right? There are also scenarios where we earn interest more than once in a year. Interest can be earned quarterly, interest can be earned half yearly, okay? We can earn interest more than once in a year. And then let's see what our future value will look like where our interest is earned, okay, more than once in a year, all right? Now, for the case of more than once in a year, this is our future value formula. We're going to be having our future value is equal to our principal multiplied by, in our bracket, we're calculating 1 plus our rate divide by how many times, okay? This here is how many times that interest was paid in a year, all right? How many times that interest was paid in a year, and then we'll be multiplying by the number of years times how many times interest was paid in a year, okay? So we are introducing an okay, different from this formula, right? We are introducing our which is the number of times that that interest was paid in a year, all right? Now let's still use this same illustration, all right, where we have that we are still investing 200,000 naira, or we are keeping it in the bank, right? And then we are expecting a 10% interest rate, and then want to keep our money for 5 years. But in this case, interest is to be paid to us twice in a year, okay? Interest is to be paid half yearly, that is every 6 months. Interest is to be paid to us twice in a year, okay? So let's substitute and see what our future value will be looking like in this case. Now our principal is still constant, and then we are having our 1 plus our r. Like I say, you take you convert from percentage to decimal, right? So 10% is going to be converted 10 over 100 to give us 0.1, all right? So our r will be having 0.1, and then like I said, our m is the number of times that the interest is paid in that year, okay? The number of times, like I said, we are going to be receiving interest twice in a year, okay? That is every 6 months. That is 2 times in a year, okay? So this is over 2, the number of times interest is paid in a year, and then the number of years is 5, and then the number of times interest is to be paid in that 5 years is 2 times. So we're going to be receiving our interest 10 times, all right? So let's multiply and see. Now back to our bracket, okay? We'll have to focus on our bracket before we multiply, all right? Now we are having 1 plus 0.1 divided by 2 is going to be giving us 0.05, right? And then 5 times 2 for the raised to power, 5 times 2 is going to be giving us 10, all right? So we are having raised to power 10, right? The next step, we are still on it. We are having 200,000. Now for our bracket, we have 1 plus 0.05, okay, to be giving us 1.05 raised to power 10, all right? The next thing we are doing, on the next step we are taking, we have 200,000. Now we are having 1.05 raised to power 10, okay, to give us 1.63, okay, approximately to 2 decimal place. So now we can now multiply our principal by our interest, okay, which is 1.63, and that will be giving us 326,000 naira, all right? Now this is, like I said, this is a case where our interest is paid to us more than once in a year, all right? We are receiving interest more than once in a year. So if you are collecting your money 3 times in a year, your m will be 3. If you're collecting 4 times in a year, your m will be 4, like that. So our m represents how many times interest is to be paid in 1 year, all right? Now the third scenario, like the first 2 scenario has to do with yearly, okay? We are calculating interest based on years and then how many times it was paid in a year. So the third scenario we're going to be looking at is where interest is calculated at a rate that is other than 1 year, that is other than per annum, okay? Like the first 2 scenarios we use, we are having that interest is calculated in a year, okay, but receive maybe more than once or twice, like that. But in this third scenario, we are having that interest is calculated at a rate but not really per annum, okay? So it's at a rate that is other than per annum. Okay, so we're going to be having a different formula for that. All right, so we're going to be stating our formula, right, for the case of where interest is calculated, is charged, okay, or is received at a rate that is other than per annum. All right, so we are having at a rate that is other than per annum. All right, so the formula for our future value, like I said, our future value is our principal plus all the interest. All right, that is why it's called compound interest. Our principal plus all the interest, so every interest is any more interest and then plus the principal, so it's compounding. All right, now our future value in this case, okay, where interest is calculated at a rate other than per annum, we are having that our future value is equal to our principal, which is our present value. Okay, our principal multiplied by 1 plus our rate. Okay, now since it's no longer calculated, it's not really calculated for the year, okay, per annum, we're no longer dividing our rate by okay, but we're going to be multiplying our year by the number of times that the interest is paid, okay, in a year. All right, so we want to still use the same illustration where we have that a person invested 200,000 naira, okay, with the bank, and then we want to keep that money for 5 years. Okay, we want to keep the money for 5 years, and then the interest is to be paid per month, no longer per year or per annum. Right, interest is to be paid per month, but in this case we're going to be receiving an interest of 2% every month. So like I said, our present value is 200,000. That's the money we are investing. Okay, our rate now is 2%. Okay, and then it's to be paid monthly, no longer yearly. Right, it's to be paid monthly. And then lastly, we are keeping it for how many years, which is our n. Okay, number of years, we are keeping it for 5 years, and then we are receiving the money every month. Okay, the month in a year, we have 12 months in 1 year. Okay, that is the number of times we're receiving that money in 1 year. But here the interest is no longer calculated per annum. Okay, it's calculated monthly, so we'll not be dividing our rate by the number of times in a year anymore. So for our future value in this case, we are going to be multiplying our present value still. Then we have our 1 plus rate. Our rate here is 2 percentage, okay, divide by 100 to get our decimal, which is 2 divided by 100. That will be giving us 0.02. All right, and then the number of years is 5, and then the months, number of months we are keeping it, okay, is for 12 months. All right, for that's 12 months in a year. Right, number of months in a year is 12 months. Now for our bracket, we are having 1 plus 0.2. Okay, that's giving us 1.02. All right, and then for our multiplication, for our raised to power, we're having 5 times 12, that is 60. Okay, so that means we'll be collecting our money or our interest 60 times, okay, for that 5 years. Now when we want to multiply, but we need to look at, like I said, for bracket, right, we follow the raised to power first before we multiply. So we are having 200,000. When we have 1.02 raised to power 60, we have 3.28. Okay, so we'll now be multiplying 200,000 by 3.28, and that will be giving us 656,000 naira. All right, that is, like I said, where we have a scenario that interest is paid at any rate that is other than per annum. All right, so with this we have come to the end of today's video on compound interest. Okay, don't forget to like this video if it was helpful to you. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't. Subscribe to all our social media handles and share our videos with as many as you can. We'll see you in our next class. Thank you.